Good morning.
Good morning.
What a few weeks this has been.
It's been...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's been intense. It's been stressful. It's been fun. We are recording
It's been
this.
busy.
Yeah. We're recording this, squeezing it in before Justin goes to the studio today.
Yep.
After I water skied. I have not showered since I water skied. We had a time in Wyoming. So we'll see. Since we last did a podcast, we had Southglenn and Wyoming.
And Wyoming.
And Boot Barn.
And Boot Barn.
Okay. So Southglenn, south in Denver, outdoor festival, tons of people there.
Went great.
That one went great. Yeah.
There were a lot of people. I mean, it was over 500. Mm-hmm. It was considerably over.
Mm-hmm. We got lucky with the weather because it was threatening. It was both really hot earlier in the day and then threatening to rain, and we got lucky on both counts. It was just nice and cool, a little breezy, but no problems. We did have problems with the power on the stage. Actually.
Yeah. They had to figure out how to plug everything in because the breaker kept blowing.
Yeah, during sound check.
Yeah. Luckily during sound check.
Yeah, I'm glad that didn't happen once the show started.
Yeah, so it was a great gig. Ran into Brent, who I worked with at Sonic Sense.
Yeah. Small world.
Small world.
He was running sound?
Monitors.
On the production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked for... Sonic Sense was a pro audio company that sold pro audio equipment, PA stuff, recording equipment, and I worked for them for a few years when I first moved to Denver, and they spectacularly went out of business.
That's a whole story.
That's a whole saga. I didn't do it. I wasn't the one who did it.
You were the one hanging on to the bitter end.
I did hang on.
I don't think you ever got paid for your last few weeks at work.
I did not.
Yeah. You went down with the ship.
Went down with the ship. Big believer in the company, but no one wanted to listen to me ultimately. So anyway, ran into Brent. That was great. Uh-huh. Great guy. Brent was smart. Jumped ship.
Aubrey Hamrick came. I was so pleased.
Oh, that's right. That was so nice.
I don't know what time she got there, but I was singing, and I just, as I kind of you look at different parts of the audience, I looked a little further to the right than I had, and I was like, there's Aubrey standing there. Oh my gosh. My friend Aubrey, backup singer, and she said we did great and everything. Yeah. I was just so pleased that she came and checked it out. That's
that's really, really nice.
Because she's a very, very busy musician.
Oh, gigs super pro. Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
That was that. So I don't think there was much.
No, that was a great gig, and then the next day was Wyoming.
Yeah. Okay, so this was opening for the Blue Oyster Cult. That show, we were stressed out.
Yeah, we were seriously stressed out.
It was very, very loud for one thing. I mean, the venue was super nice. I mean, the sound guy was a real pleasure to work with.
Ken is great. He's killer. Sometimes you get set up weird, but we were also exhausted. It's basically a 5-hour drive up there, and we thought we needed to be there at... we showed up like an hour and a half early. Yeah.
A little mix-up on times.
So...
we sat around and worked.
Yeah, it was fine, but we were tired and exhausted.
We went on 5 minutes early to try to capture the crowd that was indoors waiting for the outdoor show.
Yeah, got rushed on 5 minutes early.
Which meant you didn't have
I was absolutely not ready.
Water. You didn't have the right shoes on. You didn't have your guitar turned on. The show started, and you had to go out on stage, and you couldn't even play for a few bars.
Because I wasn't ready, and I couldn't get my guitar hooked up. I even had my wireless and my guitar backstage so I could take it on, and we were so rushed that I missed the first 8 or 12 bars of the intro because I just had to turn on the wireless and get it plugged in, and it just didn't. I was literally trying to and my hair was all. I knew my hair was all weird. So being on stage when your hair is weird.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. And I knew it was weird, and just in between songs, I'm trying to
So I knew you had that vibe starting out. I knew you were starting out not in the right headspace, frustrated.
And yeah. And the no water thing. I'm literally, it was hot up there, and my throat hurts because I'm so thirsty, and it was a rough one. Yeah. But anyway, so you're stressing out because you knew I was stressing out.
Okay, so then since we started 5 minutes early, but we were going to still play until the same time, I had to pull a song from the second set into the first set, which meant I had to go around and talk to the individual band. Like I had to pick it and then figure out where it was going to go, and then visit each band member while we were performing to yell across this like incredibly loud volume what the next song was. And then we got to the very end of that set, and we were about to finish the song, and then somehow the message got to me. I don't know if it was Vic who told me or Julian who told me, but we were going to play another half an hour. And I was just like, I don't know why, but okay, that's the command, that's what we're doing. We're just going to go right into the second set. But we'd already pulled a song from that set. We were going to repeat a song. So now we're like, the set we're about to play is kind of a mess, and I'm having to visit everybody on the stage, like every other song, to say, here's what we're playing next. People are daggers in their eyes to me, like, what did you just say? Why are we playing another half an hour?
Because we played amazingly well for everyone.
And I performed, I'm like inside, I am furious.
I did what I could.
But outside I'm, doing the best I can at performing.
Bop around.
But that built up in me to the point where when we got off stage at the end of that set, I walked straight into the green room and I screamed like a toddler. I stomped my foot on the floor and screamed and like pounded the wall.
Yeah.
And then I calmed down.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. That never happens. You've never seen that.
I've never seen that.
I've never seen that. I can't remember another time in my life where I've let my anger get to that point.
Yeah. I mean, some of it was like, not only it was bad, and you were just like counting the time and just like, okay, you got an hour. Like, this is terrible, but like you only have an hour and you can regroup. And we had to go back on and do 2 more hours later. And you were like, okay, all we got to do is just shut your brain off. Just
here's the finish line. Here's the finish line.
And then we get to the finish line and they're like 30 more minutes. And we didn't know at that point when someone, you don't know what's happening. All you know is somehow we're playing 30 more minutes. You don't know if you're going to be done at the end of that 30 minutes. Maybe they're going to say, oh, actually another 30 minutes. And you're sitting there like dying. Lesson learned. What we need to do in those situations, we tried to keep the show seamless. We tried to keep it like, hey, nothing's amiss here, nothing's weird. In the venue's defense, the other part of the show was outside and it was raining, so they couldn't start on time.
Right, so that's the reason, but we didn't know.
But we didn't know. We didn't know it was raining. We didn't know anything. And what we need to do in those situations is, break the fourth wall a little bit, slow down and go, hey guys, and we just tried to keep like running songs back to back, like 5-second max between songs. And we're all like yelling at each other and looking at each other. No one knows what's going on. I didn't know we were going an extra half hour until like 15 minutes into it. I was just like, people were going to the second set, like next song. And I'm like, why are we counting off songs? Like, what's happening here?
You didn't know until the end of the last song, actually.
Right.
We were into the second set before you knew that we were continuing on.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I felt so bad, but
I didn't know what time it was. I was just like, why are we? This can't be. Anyway.
And it's not the venue's fault. I mean, to be clear,
no.
Not at all.
No.
They were having their own challenges.
They were having a bunch. They were having
to deal with a lot of stuff.
They really were. And Pete, who owns the venue, is great. And they surely were not trying to mess us up. I think we just, we rushed on. And then we didn't like just stop and break the show and go, hey,
everybody, here's what's going on.
Here's what's going on. We just need a second to reset.
Yeah.
2 minutes. Could have got 2 minutes to just figure out, get a glass of water, figure out what's going on. I do all these guitar changes.
Right.
And I was consistently like, well, I have the worst guitar in my hand to do this song. I like absolutely cannot play this song with this guitar, but we're going. So I didn't know we were starting that song, but I guess we are. And, and just on top of everything else, it was, sometimes you have fun and sometimes you don't.
Yeah. I, reflecting on it in terms of, musicality and showmanship, I thought that one of the big lessons out of that was how big and how small the difference is between bar band playing song after song and what has become a theater show that we do.
Right.
So we have a production, we have a flow, we have things we say at certain times, we have certain transitions. And what we had to evolve into at this show was basically bar band filling time and filling audio space.
Yeah.
We were kind of a background band, in a sense, like because we had to abandon the show.
Right.
it was just, what's the next song? And when, when we redid the second set, because we ended up going on and still playing 2 more hours. So it was extra compared to our contract, but that was all.
They took care of us. It was great. It was good.
But then it was no longer our show. It was just like, which songs can we slam in here that we can do successfully, rather than the carefully considered set list we've developed
that we're normally
years.
used to doing. And that was some of the pressure. I think that was some of the pressure I was feeling was if it is a bar band thing and you're just background music or you're playing on a patio or whatever, you perform, but you don't have to perform. You know what I mean? Like you politely act like you're having an okay time, but like you don't have to like put on a show and we really, well, you were doing great. You were still doing everything you could. I was just kind of like dancing around, faking it 100%, but it was like very stressful because I'm used to like, we're doing a show.
Yeah.
And this was like, this is not a show. What's happening? Yeah. It was very stressful.
Yeah. And that was getting to me. I was like thinking as we were performing, like we're better than this show that we're putting on right now.
Oh, that was the other thing. I was cursing under my breath, constantly saying basically that same thing. This is not, and it's too much. It's too much. Sometimes stuff is just, it's too much. So that was Wyoming. And then the second 2 sets were fine. We regrouped.
Yeah.
We calmed down.
Yeah.
I went outside and stood in the rain. But we regrouped. And second 2 hours we did or whatever was fine.
Yeah. It was perfectly fine. It was loud as all get out, but it was fine.
Yeah. And the crowd was pretty ragged at that point.
But there were people having fun. Oh, there was the people there. Okay, so there was...
Oh my gosh, well that's another thing. That's a whole other story, Wyoming.
Yeah. So, who was it that pointed out that there was some guy like all tatted up with like a nose ring?
There were 2 guys.
Okay.
With face tattoos.
Yeah.
Like big, muscle-bound guys
Scary
with like
looking
face
guys.
tattoos. And they were singing along to every word of Gypsy.
They were up front, just singing
like
straight
up
to me
front,
with
just
Gypsy.
like it's singing all the words, and I was like,
and I'm like dancing around like a, like a ballerina.
And I was like, where did you guys even hear this song? Like, what? It was so amazing. I was like, and not only that, like I noticed when we started the song, like before the vocals started,
I knew it.
We started the song, and they were like,
yeah,
oh, yeah, Gypsy. It was just like. You could see maybe like Edge of 17. That's like a rocker, but like Gypsy's like. Yeah, and these super tough guys.
Yeah. So people loved it. They really seemed to love it.
Yeah.
But there were some weird interactions, I'll be honest.
Yes.
And this happens. This isn't a Wyoming thing. This happens anywhere.
I know where you're going.
I mean, it's happened to me all the time. When we played with Urban Dance Theory, there's always some drunk guy who figures that you're the one he's going to hit on.
Right.
It wasn't me this time. It hasn't been me in a while, which is nice.
Glad for you.
But Maddie got hit on a lot. And she was just trying to like hide out in the green room and be safe. He did hit on me briefly in a weird way. I don't know if you could call this hitting on someone. He interacted with me. I was heading into the green room after a break, or during a break, and he, stopped me, and I was like, hey, I'm always down to chat with anybody who's at the show.
Have to, yeah.
And his comment was, you look better when you're singing. And I was like, hello? What? That's how you start this conversation?
That might be what I don't know how long ago, and a very outdated dating strategy called negging.
Oh.
Where you
cut the girl
down. And then she's like more interested because the theory is she's gonna have to prove that she's like, no, wait, I'm actually good, so I'm gonna like hang out with you more to like show you that.
Yeah.
Discredited a bit. I believe the guy who sold all the books about that, I think he lost it all supporting Trump. Oh. Either way, I think he's like.
There's a guy who wrote books about negging?
Tons of them. He was the Seth Godin of terrible hitting on women. Like he had this
gosh.
he wrote like 10 books and he had like a website and like this, he gave seminars and all this whole thing.
Gosh.
And then at some point he, you know.
People figured him out that it doesn't
Yeah,
work.
and he lost it all. And I think quite literally last I heard he was very broke. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I think that's what happened to you there.
Okay.
But the guy had a wealth of strategies, many of them bordering on assault.
So the weird one he did to me was he went to like high five me, and so I was like, sure, whatever. After that weird comment, I'll high five you and move on. And he caught my high five and he was like, ooh, your hand's so small. And I was like, what? This is second weird comment in a row. Okay, I'm just leaving. I'm going in the green room now. Except that two guys who were just in the audience had just walked into the green room and they're like, hey guys, here we're drinking in here. And we're like, what? Who are you? Get out.
Yeah. And it's always weird in those situations because you don't want to yell at them because you're like, is this a VIP? Is it a friend of the owner?
I assumed it was somebody from the venue.
Are they a part owner of the venue? I don't think they were. I think they were just random dudes who thought we wanted their opinion on our show, which backstage we don't. You know? Like,
we need a little break.
We're trying to just take
space.
a second and like, but yeah, that guy, I was trying to signal to the sound guy because it was literally keeping people from coming up to the front of the stage and enjoying the show because he was like forcibly like grabbing people to try to get them to dance with him. And so these girls would like come up to enjoy the show and then he would start bugging them and they'd be like, let's get out of here. And they'd beeline it out and right out the back door. I saw probably 10 people, 3 groups of a couple of women left over
Wow.
you know, that.
Yeah.
And having been in bars as much as I have and having played music in all kind of venues, like that is something a venue absolutely needs to be aware of. And this venue is not, is like there are people who will be being a problem and they are actively running people out of your club. And you need to do something about that because it was literally impacting our ability to get the crowd going and moving because this person would just not stop bothering young women and then they would leave because they were feeling weird and probably threatened, I would assume.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm always aware of. And I'm like, I was trying to like, as like somebody's like, no, I don't want to dance with you. And I'm like, what's happening here? Look over here. Anyway, that's a. If you own a venue out there, I know we have lots of bar and venue owners that listen to the podcast. Yeah. Mainly, that's a lot of our demographic is people who own venues. That's something that places should be aware of, and I think we should all maybe a takeaway lesson to that is everyone, even if you're just a patron, should feel more agency to say something to the staff about people who are making other people not have a good time. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always have to be weird and creepy. I've told the story, I don't think, of the podcast. When I was working in Jacksonville, there were a group of German guys. I don't know what the deal was. 5 maybe German guys, maybe 50-ish. And they would come in these bars and clubs and you know, it was a bar club and people are dancing, but they would just go rave out nuts, like going nuts in the middle of the dance floor. And they'd take off their shirts and they're just super sweaty and like sweat's going everywhere. And they would just clear out dance floors and venues because they would show up and like, no woman wants to be on a dance floor with these sweaty guys. And they weren't bothering anybody. They were keeping themselves and having a great time. I don't know if they were on drugs. I don't know what, but they would be everywhere. And so I started kicking them out, and it got to the point where if they walked in a venue and saw me, they'd just be like, let's go somewhere else, because they knew I would be like, no, out, like, those guys gotta go, like, we can't do it. I never figured out what their deal was, you know, and I felt bad because they just wanted to have a good time, but like also like I saw plenty of people say to them over and over again, like, you got to keep your shirt on, you got to stop dancing like that, like, calm down, like. Again, they would never do it. They'd be like good for like 5 minutes and then back to, you know. Yeah. Anyway, that's the German story.
Okay, so it was Wyoming. Then it was Boot Barn. Yeah. So we drove back from Wyoming. You and I both had lessons that afternoon.
Did our lessons. Went to
a party.
Went to a party house concert.
Oh yeah. It put on by one of our students.
Yeah.
So he's your guitar student and my voice student, and he's also connected. Not family. It's connected to my family in the sense that his wife's friend or something used to work with my uncle. You know, they know my mom's side of the family, down in
friends.
Tucson.
Yeah.
So they invited us to a party. They had 2 musicians there playing singer-songwriter stuff. One was from Italy, the other one from Austin. So 2 women who, did some singer-songwriter stuff. And we just had a fun time.
Great stuff.
Hanging out in their beautiful backyard.
Yeah, beautiful yard. So we did that and then came home. Slept some.
Slept a little, and then went down to Boot Barn the next day.
Boot Barn in Colorado Springs.
Beautiful venue, huge stage. Great crowd.
Oh
yeah, I mean we've played there a handful of times now.
Right.
Near sellout or sellout each time. I think there were maybe 6 tickets left the day of the show, and so those probably sold.
Yeah, when I looked after soundcheck, there were 3 left.
Okay.
So I'm sure that it sold out, and I don't know what they sell standing room only. That was seated.
Right. That crowd had more energy than the previous times we've played there, and there were a lot of repeats. Like there are people who see us every time we go play down there.
That is an interesting thing. We hear that from people a lot. That they're like, "Oh, I've seen you every time you come down," which is crazy and great, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, and we, speaking of. Like, there's a question, I think, anybody could have the question, do you play the same show to the same people each time you go?
Right.
And I would say the answer is, like, mostly yes, because that is our show. We don't throw out the set list we've developed over years and just put something completely new together for them because it's designed the way it's designed,
and no one does. You know what I mean?
I think some bands might argue among themselves that, like, oh, we played these 20 songs last time we were there. We need to play at least 10 different ones.
Yeah, but I mean, I would bet, if you go see some huge artist,
right,
twice, you're gonna hear a majority of the same songs. And you wouldn't want to. That's why you went to see them again. You don't want you don't want Paul McCartney playing you a bunch of songs that you've never heard before.
Yeah. So it's essentially the same. We played a few songs that we didn't play last time. I think there's some places in our set list where we kind of swap stuff in and out. Like the beginning's always the same, the ending's always mostly the same. And there's a couple points in the middle that are always the same, but we swap some stuff out. And then another thing that's changing recently is, I think I mentioned this last week, how I'm talking to the crowd more, and that's really opening the door even further to them. So I feel like I'm getting better at that.
I'm 100% sure 90% sure that is what's because I feel like the crowds have been increasingly amped up, starting in California, the Southglenn show, and then the Boot Barn, and we've been going a little slower and taking a few spots that it goes a little slower, and you talk and you get a little more in depth and tell a little more personal story. And then I think also that we have those moments where the audience gets to connect on some level with every member of the band.
Right.
And I think that kind of just amps it up.
It's like these little additional connections.
They're small. Like for Ari, it's just that like he has a big solo section and we all get out of the way and let Ari have a big solo section.
Point at him.
Kind of early in the show, and you know what I mean? And that it's just those little things that because maybe this isn't true for musicians, but for your average audience goer or people who like to go to shows, I think there's just a limit to how much you can get into a show if you're just watching people play music. Like, you don't have a personal connection to them. You don't know who they are. They're just people standing there making music, and the classic musician thing that all musicians want to do, like they're just going to stand with their back to the audience and face each other and just jam out. And maybe you don't feel this way when you go see your heroes or whatever, because you do feel a connection to them because you do know them. But when you're seeing a show, I think, you have to let people in a little bit, because otherwise they just can't get invested past a certain point.
Yeah,
if it's just people standing there playing music. Yeah.
And we noticed I used a different hook in Dreams, So in California, when I just thought of the story in the moment about, I went to school in California and it was Gypsy. Went to school in California and I had a story about, moving to Florida. And when I mentioned going to school in California and we were in California, there was this big cheer.
Yeah.
So like that was their hook with me. Like, oh yeah, she's one of us.
Yeah, right.
And then not by plan, but by chance, instead of saying I went to school in California, in Colorado Springs, I said I loaded up my Jeep Cherokee and drove across the country.
And
that one got
Jeep, the audience just roared.
Jeep country.
The concept of a Jeep.
Tiny little adjustment, but I'm going to keep looking for those things, like trying to understand who the audience is. When we're in the song before a song I'm going to introduce, I spend the last half of that song kind of just like turning over in my mind. Who is this audience? How does this song need to be introduced? What's the angle on this story?
Right.
And I'm going to continue to do that. And I don't know how I've gotten it right. It's been complete chance, but the chance that I've gotten it somewhat right the last couple of times really encourages me to keep looking for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it just enhances the experience for the audience. It's just like they go, oh, this person's one of us. Or, they just have a little bit of a personal in to the person behind the performance. Even though we're, doing other people's music and whatever, it still, I think, helps quite a bit. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like it's really working. I feel like it's been great. Vic has a moment where he says something to the crowd. I think that's great. I think when you bring up Brian, I think that's that's one of my evidence points. Is that just bringing up Brian, which by the way, you did an amazing job of. We talked about tweaking that and you totally did. And it got like a huge applause break. But when we do, Brian is usually back by the drums because he's playing keys and he's playing guitar and he's doing backup vocals. So he's got his little command center back there. And then he comes up to the front to play acoustic guitar for Landslide. And you've always introduced him, but you moved it around.
Yeah, I changed the order. The exclamation point was at the end of the sentence rather than at the beginning.
Right. But it got a huge applause break because I think that's what people want to do. They want to connect, and getting like introduced to one of the people who's been up there doing the music for an hour and a half, 2 hours at that point. That's a big deal, and that's why it gets like a huge applause break, standing ovation. He hasn't done anything. He just got introduced and came up to the front. But people want to acknowledge. Yeah. And that's the whole thing about, that's really the whole thing about that the end of Go Your Own Way.
Where you do the hat thing?
Yeah. And we were talking about, I think we talked about it last time, but it's so much of like, a lot of times the audience wants a place to express their enjoyment or enthusiasm or whatever. And a lot of times, song, they don't have a chance to do that. So when you give them that spot, they're thrilled to do it because they want to tell you they like it. They're just not really getting a chance. Yeah. Yeah. And so giving them that chance, that's how that works. And in fact, I would argue you can maybe even turn an audience off by just going too long without giving them a chance to...
Because it's all energy one way.
It's all energy one way.
Sending it out, and you're not waiting for it to...
What did we say in the car? We were talking about like the difference between just sharing songs with people versus just playing songs at people.
I don't remember.
I forget how we said it, but there is that difference of like, then sometimes I have probably done it tons where you're just like, like at the audience, and they just have to like... and it's what we talk. You can just be too much. Anyway, getting long. So
that wrapped up the most intense couple of weeks probably of this year. Now we're turning our attention toward a Cody Qualls gig on Thursday.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. We have a rehearsal Sunday.
And we have a wedding with the Petty Next Experience at downtown on Saturday. And then we have another Cody Qualls gig after that. Yeah. And then we have a duo gig. 2 duo gigs, you and me. So we have to brush off.
Some duo gigs coming. Yeah, gotta work on that. Yeah. Yeah, lots of...
and a showcase.
And lots of recording, finishing up Cody's EP, still got work to go on that. I think I am done with Casey's EP as of
Yay.
yesterday. Maybe I have to slot out one little ad lib, but yeah, back to the normal.
Yeah.
Normal.
And then Performance High, I mentioned the showcase. Also, we just announced on Facebook last night and tonight a couple of changes with Kristen. So Kristen Page, who has been a student, then been a teacher at Performance High, then been in the teacher certification program at Performance High. She just graduated from this training program that I created yesterday. Wait, I didn't create it yesterday. She graduated yesterday. She went through it really fast.
So fast.
So kudos to her. And then we announced today that she is wrapping her studio into Performance High. We're combining the studios. Which is,
so
like
great.
I wrote on Facebook, it's shocking to me because she had a not so positive experience working for a different studio owner and decided she started her studio because she didn't ever want to work for anyone else again. And then she decided she'd like to work for me. I say for. I don't feel like I'm like, she's not working. She's working with me. I mean, I guess technically I'm her employer. But,
well, that's some of the difference, though.
Yeah, we're very much peers. So we're wrapping her students in over the next 6 weeks or so, and they're going to grow Performance High by quite a bit.
Yeah, that's great.
And there's other stuff on the horizon that I'm not going to talk about yet, but feels like things are really moving.
Yeah, that's so great. And Joe and I still working on the coup. We're not the most organized, so it might take a little while, but yeah, we're gonna seize the means of production and.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, eventually I will get to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'll keep my eyes open.
Okay.
I'm so worried.
Yeah, Joe, I'll text you.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we have stuff to do. We gotta get going. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you next week.